So Mimi asked me to share some stories of Gyatrul Rinpoche from my father and from myself. And she pointed out that there are many newer students who didn't get the chance to meet him. So hopefully I'll share some stories that are hopefully inspiring. Rinpoche is very hard to describe. Sometimes you see on television and movies actors trying to depict transcendent beings or mystical figures, and they act kind of blank or emotionally flat. But those of us who knew Rinpoche knew that he was the complete opposite of that. Rinpoche was highly realized and omniscient, and he was so alive. He was funny, hilarious even, joking and mischievous. Many of you already know this, but maybe some of you don't. My father, Decho, was one of Gyatrul Rinpoche's earliest students here in the West. My mother, Shou Fang, was Gyatrul Rinpoche's student from Taiwan. So my parents met because of Gyatrul Rinpoche and Sangye Khandro. Sangye played matchmaker to my parents. She was traveling back and forth between here and Taiwan, and she knew that my dad was looking to get married. So she said to him, "Tian, if you're looking for a wife, that's the one." And then so they started corresponding and writing letters, and they decided to get married. And my dad flew over to Taiwan to marry my mother, and on that trip they ran into Gyatrul Rinpoche and Sangye at the airport in Taiwan. And they took that as a very good sign. So I grew up always knowing Gyatrul Rinpoche and Sangye Khandro. I even have very early memories of Sangye holding me when I was a baby and hearing her beautiful voice. I grew up listening to my dad's stories about Gyatrul Rinpoche. In the very early 1970s, my father was living in Germany, working at an all-girls high school teaching math, and he became very sick. He felt like he was dying, like he couldn't breathe or talk. He went to doctors and they did tests, but no one could find anything wrong with him. But my father said he felt that there was some kind of blockage in his throat, and he started getting worse and worse. My dad had not been particularly religious at this point, but he was in so much pain and no one could help him. Desperate, he knelt down and prayed to Guanyin, the goddess of mercy, the Chinese form of Chenrezig, appearing in female aspect. He prayed from his heart for her to save his life, and Guanyin answered. She sent to him a vision of an Indian man with a gray beard, wearing long flowing white robes. Guanyin said, "This is a holy man. He will heal you." A few months later, my father was invited to one of his friend's flats and was introduced to an Indian physician and spiritual teacher, Dr. R.P. Kaushik. He was the man from the vision. He followed Dr. Kaushik to Amsterdam with a group of Dr. Kaushik's students. And one night, they all slept on a boat owned by one of the students. All the other students fell asleep. Then Dr. Kaushik was the only one who was awake with my father. They spent the entire night speaking, but not with words, only communicating with their minds. And my father would pose a question in his mind, and Dr. Kaushik would answer. My father said that many of his questions and problems were resolved that night. And after that night, my father was healed, and Dr. Kaushik taught him how to meditate. After beginning to meditate in earnest, my father started to recall many of his past lives in dreams and visions. And although he hadn't yet met Gyatrul Rinpoche in this current life, he remembered past lives where he was with Gyatrul Rinpoche. He remembered Rinpoche as a powerful shogun in Japan. My father says he saw himself, one of Gyatrul Rinpoche's people, walking across a field on his way to the castle where Gyatrul Rinpoche was residing. In a different life, he remembers dying of the Black Death in a big cathedral in France around the 1500s. And Gyatrul Rinpoche was some kind of archbishop wearing a tall hat, and he was giving my father the last rites. My father said that his last words in that life were, "Mary Magdalene, please pray for me." And he saw his body turn black and decompose. Years later, in 1977, my father was living in Berkeley, California. One night, he dreamed of a wide river made of pure light. On the riverbank in front of him was an ancient man who looked to be thousands of years old. He looked tired. He took off his robe and held it to the sun. My dad could see many tears and holes, and the sunlight shining through these holes. The man was preparing to jump into the river of light. And then my dad heard a voice like nothing he had ever heard before, melodious and wonderful. He turned to his left and he saw Chenrezig with 4 arms. His body was completely clear like crystal, and he spoke in that melodious voice to the old man on the river bank. He indicated my dad and said, "This is my son. You have to save him." At this, the old man stopped. He did not jump into the river of light, but instead he stayed on the shore. A few months later, my father met Gyatrul Rinpoche through Bruce Newman, who had taken him to an empowerment. And a few weeks after that, my father moved into the center, which was called Organ Choding, or OCD. A few weeks after that, Gyatrul Rinpoche told everyone, please clean up the center very nicely because His Holiness Dudjom Rinpoche was coming from New York. My dad said he was feeling kind of rebellious. He didn't even know who Dudjom Rinpoche was. So instead of cleaning, he went to a movie. And then later when he came back to the center, he just ate and fell asleep. That night, he dreamed, and in it, he heard the same beautiful, melodious voice asking him, "Do you remember the dream from before?" "Yes," he answered. "Do you remember the old man from your dream?" "Yes." "That old man is Gyatrul Rinpoche. He came here to save you." When my dad woke up, he felt a great sense of remorse. He was crying with shame and sadness. He immediately went to the place where Gyatrul Rinpoche and Sangye were living. Sangye answered the door and brought him to Rinpoche. And my dad told Gyatrul Rinpoche about both dreams and asked him to please forgive him for disobeying him. After listening carefully, Rinpoche said, "Yes, that is correct. When you had the first dream, I was dying in Hawaii. And the Karmapa is Chenrezig. He is the reason why I came back." And the story that he was referring to, many of you guys know, but maybe some people don't know. So some months before this, Gyatrul Rinpoche was in a hospital in Hawaii and he was dying. He had a stomach ulcer and he was very, very sick. A group of people had gathered at the hospital because they heard that there was a Tibetan Lama who was dying. And His Holiness the 16th Karmapa came and he picked Sangye Khandro out of the crowd and he placed her hand in Gyatrul Rinpoche's. "You take care of him for the rest of your life." And she did. And not only did she take care of Rinpoche, she and Lama Chunum took care of Rinpoche and of all of us as our precious and beloved teachers. And so I grew up on these stories of Gyatrul Rinpoche. And my father and mother have always had the highest faith and respect for Rinpoche. So in a way, this was kind of like a family inheritance. And also, personally, I always really liked Rinpoche. Since we were kids, he always took time and effort to relate to us. I remember Rinpoche and the Sangha would gather at our house in different places, Chris Yang's house, to do pujas. And my twin sister and I were very young, and we would be watching television in the living room, sometimes at our house. And despite all of the busy Dharma activity, Gyatrul Rinpoche would take time and talk to us, just sit with us, even watch TV, because he was relating to us. And there was a talking robot in one of the shows we were watching that would go, "Ay, ay, 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 ay." And Gyatrul Rinpoche would come and repeat, "Ay, ay, 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 ay," just to make us laugh. And I also remember the other buildings that we had before we bought this building in San Francisco, the one with the wooden elevator. And me and my sister, we used to ride it up and down during the events because we were bored. We were trying to have fun. Also in Chinatown in Oakland too, that place. And I remember seeing so many of you guys there, Lama Les and Lindy and Scott, so many people. And so I really grew up with all of you guys. We really are a family. And also many of us have stories about Gyatrul Rinpoche's omniscience, which he was very casual about. Maybe 15 years or more ago, I was driving up to Tashi Choling with an ex-boyfriend. And that night we stopped in Mount Shasta and we had a big fight because he revealed to me that he didn't like black people. And then the next day, we got to Tashi Choling, and Gyatrul Rinpoche mentioned, very casually, some people like Truma Nagmo, some people don't. Just like some people like black people, some people don't. And also, Gyatrul Rinpoche also told me privately some things that would happen in my life many, many years before they happened. And he even gave me advice about those things. And all of those events happened exactly as he said they would. Even some of those things happened very recently, years after he passed. And so my purpose in telling these stories is to inspire us. Many of us have known Gyatrul Rinpoche for a long time. Some of us maybe for a shorter time. And some of us connected during the sacred time of his parinirvana, and some of us connected afterwards. But what is sure is that we are all connected. All of us are within the sacred mandala, and we are Vajra family. How many lifetimes have we suffered in samsara waiting to meet the Guru? How many countless sentient beings suffer endlessly in samsara, never even hear the word Dharma? We are so incredibly fortunate. And yes, all of us, we're getting older, we get sick, and one day we will all die. But we are so incredibly lucky to have connected with our precious teachers and to have the opportunity to really practice.